In this video, we're going to talk about the adaptive cruise control and the intelligent cruise control modes of the BYD Atto 3. And I'm also going to share my preferences and a few things that I learned about these systems after driving the BYD Atto 3 for more than 1,200 kilometers. So let's get into it. In my mind, there are four levels of control in the BYD Atto 3. The first is just normal driving, normal steering, no assistance, just like any other car on the road. Then you could add the lane support system, LSS. I'm not going to cover that in this video. If you're interested in learning more about that, I've covered it already. Check that one out. Then you can add the adaptive cruise control mode. And finally, if you want, you can go to intelligent cruise control. So I'm going to cover mainly the adaptive cruise control and the intelligent cruise control modes. I'm going to talk about how to turn them on and off, what they do, when to use them, and my preferences and my experiences for each of these. So let's begin with adaptive cruise control. To turn on the adaptive cruise control mode, on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, press the right button, the set reset button. That arms the adaptive cruise control. Once you press that button, you'll notice directly in front of you, at the top right-hand corner of the screen, a little 30 icon will appear. That indicates that the system is armed. The other indication that you'll get is, again, in front of you, immediately below the car, you'll see ACC activated. If you're driving at a speed above 30 kilometers per hour, you can click up with your left thumb once, and the target speed, that little 30, will change to your current speed. That becomes the target speed for the adaptive cruise control system. So let's say, for example, you're driving at 85 kilometers per hour and the speed limit is 100. In that case, once you flick up with your left thumb one time, the adaptive cruise control system will jump up to your current speed of 85 kilometers per hour. But because the speed limit is 100, you might want to set your target speed to be 100. So to achieve that, what you would do is just flick up 3 times, and then the target speed would be set at 100. The way it works is flicking up or down with your left thumb adjusts the target speed by 5 kilometer per hour increments. Keep in mind that although the BYD will display the speed limit on both of the screens, pretty often it makes mistakes. And for that reason, the car will allow you to speed, which I think is important and can be beneficial in some situations. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Personally, I really like the adaptive cruise control mode, and it's just like any other cruise control, except it's smart. What that means is that it will have regard for the vehicle in front of you if there is one. For example, if you have set a target speed of 100 kilometers per hour and there's a vehicle in front of you that's slowing down and may eventually come to a complete stop, the BYD Atto 3 will slow down and eventually come to a complete stop as well without you having to touch the brake, the accelerator pedal. It will do that by itself, which I think is cool. Similarly, if the vehicle in front of you is accelerating, the BYD Atto 3 will also accelerate up to your target speed. I think it's great. I've got a lot of confidence in the system. It didn't scare me too many times. Sure, there are a few things about the system that are maybe not perfect, and we'll also talk more about those in a moment as well. But generally speaking, I like the system. I've got a lot of confidence in it, and I certainly like it more than the ICC system, which is coming up next. Now let's talk about a couple of shortcomings with the adaptive cruise control system, because although it's good, it's not perfect. The first one that I noticed is if you're driving and a vehicle in an adjacent lane slightly ahead of you decides to merge into your lane, the BYD Atto 3 has a minor heart attack in that situation, and I noticed a few times it abruptly slammed on the brakes just for a split second. If you're driving a normal car, that would be a non-event. You could see the vehicle merging into your lane, you could anticipate it. Maybe you need to back off the accelerator pedal a little bit. Maybe you even need to apply a little bit of braking. But the BYD Atto 3 does freak out sometimes in those situations. Something that I didn't observe myself, but I saw some people report online, is that if you're going around bends, the BYD Atto 3 might accelerate as it's going around the bend if it can no longer see the vehicle in front. That could get a little bit messy, I think. I didn't actually observe that one, but keep in mind, if you're going around bends, that could happen. So just be ready to take over. As good as the adaptive cruise control system is, there are some other things that you need to be aware of. For example, if you are driving and there are no vehicles in front of you, and if you're approaching a red light, the BYD Atto 3 has no idea there's a red light there. So that's on you to slow down and stop. That's a big one. That's an important one, right? So keep in mind, it can't see traffic lights, at least not yet. Another thing that I thought about that I wasn't actually brave enough to test is if there are no vehicles immediately in front of you, but let's say you're driving at 60, 80 kilometers per hour and you're approaching in the distance a red light and maybe there are some vehicles already stopped there. In theory, the BYD Atto 3 will eventually detect those vehicles. It will detect that they are stopped and it will eventually stop. I'm sure it would work, but I'm too scared to test that one. I would not be confident enough to test that in practice above about 30 kilometers per hour. And even then, I'll be ready to take over in case it scared me too much. Speaking of 30 kilometers per hour, 30 kilometers per hour is the minimum target speed at which the adaptive cruise control system will operate. The car can drive at speeds slower than 30 kilometers per hour with the adaptive cruise control system turned on, but that can only be happening if you have a target speed of 30 or greater set and there's a vehicle in front of you traveling below 30 kilometers per hour. Say, for example, if you're approaching a red light and you're going to come to a complete stop. What this means is you can be stopped completely at traffic lights with the adaptive cruise control mode still on, and you can get the car moving again when the lights turn green. There are two ways to do that. The first way is you can tap once with your foot on the accelerator pedal, and that will get the car moving again. The easier way is probably just to flick up once with your left thumb, and that will also start the car moving again. There are a couple of different ways that you can turn off the adaptive cruise control system. Number one, you could gently tap on the brake pedal and that will immediately disable the adaptive cruise control system. You'll be back to complete manual steering, complete manual speed and brake control. The easier way and the way that I prefer to do it is just to touch the set reset button with your left thumb one time. It has the same effect. You'll be back to complete manual speed control. It's just like a normal car at that point. Before we move on and talk about the intelligent cruise control system, I just want to quickly dispel a couple of myths that I saw online regarding the adaptive cruise control system. I know these things confuse people, so I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my experiences based on driving the car for more than 1,200 kilometers. The first myth is if you long press either up or down with your left thumb, that will allow you to change the target speed at the top right-hand corner by 1 kilometer per hour increments. I tried it. That did not work for me. It is a software thing. So theoretically, in the future, BYD could change that anytime they want. But I saw that online. I tested it. That didn't work for me. Something else to keep in mind is that you can use the adaptive cruise control system by itself without using the intelligent cruise control system, but not vice versa. Now, listen, I know there's a lot of details here, a lot of numbers, a lot of systems. Some things depend on each other, some things don't. There's a lot of things to think about, but don't worry about it. I'll send you all of these notes right here on my screen. If you click on the link below in the description, I'll send you all of these notes so you can have everything at hand. If you want to use the intelligent cruise control system, you must pair it with the adaptive cruise control system. Which brings us to the intelligent cruise control mode. And this is the highest level of support and assistance that you can get from the BYD Atto 3. I know BYD don't call this autopilot, but just so that we understand what I'm talking about here, I think it might make it a bit easier if you allow me to refer to this mode as the autopilot. There are a couple of different ways that you can turn on the ICC system, and you can do this both with the car stopped or if the car is already moving. The first way is you can turn on the adaptive cruise control mode as just discussed, and then you can also add the ICC capability to that. Or alternatively, you can first arm the ICC mode, and then you can add adaptive cruise control to it to get things going. Keep in mind that if you want to use the intelligent cruise control mode, you must use the adaptive cruise control mode. There's no getting around that. But that's not all. In fact, if you want to use the intelligent cruise control mode, you need to have everything enabled. And you don't need to do anything. It's just going to automatically turn everything on. That's adaptive cruise control needs to be on. Lane support system, that will be on as well. Emergency lane keep assist, even if you've turned that off, it will be turned on automatically. You don't need to do anything. There's nothing that you can do about it. Just know that if you're using the intelligent cruise control mode, the BYD will either require you to add the adaptive cruise control, or it will automatically turn on all of the other modes as well. Indications that the ICC system is turned on or armed. You'll see indications both on the center screen and also on the screen directly in front of you. On the screen directly in front of you, once you've armed the system, at the top right, you will see a little gray icon appear. And when the system is active, that will change to green color. Additionally, on the screen in front of you, either side of the car icon, you'll see orange lines if the system is on or gray lines if the system is armed. The whole idea of this intelligent cruise control system is to be like an autopilot, which is why I said, for the sake of this video, let's just refer to it as an autopilot so you know what I'm talking about. In theory, it's going to take control of the steering, it's going to take care of the speed control, the braking, everything. And you could just kind of sit back and watch things happen. Not exactly, and I definitely don't recommend that. In fact, I think the system currently is not that good. We'll talk about that, but that's kind of the idea. Now, if you want to change lanes, the autopilot ICC will be momentarily disabled for the time that you've got the indicator, the blinker switched on. If you turn on the indicator, the BYD Atto 3 knows that you want to change lanes, so you'll be back to manual steering control until you have changed lanes, turned off the indicator, and then at that point, the complete ICC system will be reactivated again in the new lane. If you're using the ICC system and you've come to a complete stop, let's say at traffic lights, I think it's pretty cool that the system will remain on and going while you're sitting there waiting for the traffic lights to turn green. When the lights turn green, if you get the car moving again, it will continue to work. And I think that's really, really cool. It takes care of the steering, it takes care of the speed control, even around town. Although I don't trust it entirely, and I don't think you should either. But I do think it's pretty novel the way it works like that. Despite the fact that I do think this autopilot ICC system is cool. I think it's really novel. I think it's great. There is one big deal breaker for me personally. It has scared me in this regard too many times, and that is lane keeping. Not really the adaptive cruise control component. Speed control is good, but the lane keeping, the steering, the autopilot has scared me too many times. I've seen the BYD Atto 3 slowly start drifting either left or right, and maybe it realizes and it corrects. Okay, not too bad. But sometimes it will drift so far to the left or the right that the LSS warnings will activate and it will say, hey, I'm doing a bad job of staying in the center of the lane. Aren't you on autopilot? Isn't this your job? Shouldn't you be taking care of this? So I think that's kind of silly. And then sometimes it's able to correct. Okay, fine. But other times it will just continue drifting out of the lane and eventually it will just give up. And when it gives up, it turns off. It completely disables. It hands back manual steering to you. And I think the notifications, the warnings around that type of event happening are really not sufficient. So you really need to be paying attention at all times. Make sure your hand is on the steering wheel. Make sure you're aware of what mode the car is in, and don't trust it too much. If you think you can get this car, turn on the autopilot, and then fall asleep and safely arrive at your destination, I would say no, definitely not. That maybe they'll get there eventually. BYD make good cars. I'm obviously a fan. But I just want to share with you my honest experiences with regard to the ICC system as of the time of recording, because I think it's a serious safety concern. There are a couple of different ways to turn off this autopilot ICC system, and it really depends on what you want to achieve. So I would say first ask yourself, do you want to just deprecate back to manual steering with adaptive cruise control enabled? Or do you want to completely switch everything off and go back to complete manual steering and complete manual speed and braking control as well? If you decide that you just want to turn off the ICC function and you want to go back to adaptive cruise control only, the way to do that is on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, press the left button one time, and that will switch off the ICC mode, and you'll be back with manual steering and adaptive cruise control taking care of the speed. However, if you decide that you want to switch everything off, there are a couple of different ways to do that, and it's simply turning off the adaptive cruise control mode as already mentioned. So options are you either tap the brake pedal one time, or a smoother way to do it is just press one time with your left thumb on the set reset button, and that will also disable the adaptive cruise control system. And keep in mind, as I mentioned, that if the adaptive cruise control system is not on, then the ICC system can also not be functioning as well. So it's a pretty nice way of easily and quickly disabling everything, and you'll be back with complete manual steering and complete manual speed control as well. I mentioned earlier in this video that I think it's a good thing that the BYD Atto 3 will allow you to speed Let me explain what I mean because that might sound a little bit strange. Although the BYD Atto 3 does its best to display the speed limit on both of the screens, sometimes you'll notice a discrepancy between the displayed speed limits. For example, maybe the center console is showing you the speed limit might be 60 kilometers per hour, but on the screen directly in front of you, it's showing the speed limit as 110 kilometers per hour. Very strange. Additionally, sometimes you'll notice that both screens are showing the speed limit incorrectly. For example, if you're on a freeway where the speed limit is 110 and you've just gone past an exit ramp, maybe the speed limit there is 60. I've seen situations where either both screens show the speed limit on the exit ramp, 60 kilometers per hour. And I've also seen situations where there's a discrepancy. Maybe one screen shows correctly 110, while the other screen shows incorrectly 60. In situations like that, it's very important that you can speed, and the BYD Atto 3 will honor the target speed that you have set because I'm on the freeway. I know the speed limit is 110. Okay, we've just gone past an exit ramp. You're telling me the speed limit is 60. I know you're wrong. So please just respect my target speed, and the BYD Atto 3 will respect your target speed. So that's why I think it's a good thing. Overall, it's fair to say that I'm much more of a fan of the adaptive cruise control mode of the BYD Atto 3 and less so of the intelligent cruise control autopilot mode of the Atto 3. As of the time of recording, I'm aware these are software things, and BYD will definitely improve these. They can patch these, change things anytime they want. As of the time of recording, these are my honest experiences, honest opinions with regard to these modes. But I'd also be interested to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences with these modes. So share anything that you think is interesting in the comments section below. I know we've covered a lot. It's complicated, but don't worry about it because it's all here. Adaptive cruise control, intelligent cruise control, how they work, how to turn them on, how to turn them off, what's dependent on what. Everything you need to know is right here. So click on the first link below in the description and I'll send you everything. There are other things related to the BYD Atto 3 that are really important. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. But after driving the vehicle for more than 1,200 kilometers, I share all of my thoughts about everything in this video right here.